Hello everyone, my name is Gabby and today I'm going to be bringing you the mid-year book freakout tag. I was tagged by Molly over at Magical Molly about a month ago and I'm finally getting around to doing this video because of the book slump that I've been. When I got tagged, I looked through all the questions, I was trying to figure out what book I was going to match up with each question, and I was just having a difficult time with it because I was in a little bit of a book slump. And this tag, for those of you that are unfamiliar with it, is meant to sort of be a look back at your reading progress with the first half of the year and then looking forward to the second half of the year and what books you want to read. So it's a really awesome tag because I think it's a great way to sort of motivate yourself to read more if you are in a little bit of a slump. And now that I've been getting out of that, I've been reading more books, I've been more invested in reading, I've had more time to read. I think it's the perfect time to do this video. I'm really excited to dive in and discuss my progress so far for this year and discuss some of the books that I'm excited to read later on this year. So thank you so much, Molly, for tagging me. I will be linking her channel down below as well as her version of this tag. Make sure you go and check her out. I'm not going to be tagging anyone because this video is already coming late than normal and everyone who's already wanted to do this tag has done it because it has relatively blown up on BookTube, but I'm excited to get to do it, so thank you so much, Molly, for tagging me, and we're gonna dive into the questions. Question number 1, the best book you've read so far in 2017. This has to go to Geekerella by Ashley Poston. I love this book so much because it takes Cinderella, which is something that I feel like is really repetitive and really overdone, and eventually the more that you start to see it done, just the more disinterested you become. But Ashley Poston takes that world of Cinderella, something that is already so overdone, and makes it new and adds this whole geek and fandom culture to it while still encapsulating all the things that we love about Cinderella, and the two just blend together so nicely, and I absolutely fell in love with it. There were so many points where I was reading this book and loved all the Cinderella aspects that were a part of this story, but also loved the blend of the geek and fandom culture, and so many points where I saw those aspects of Cinderella, and even though I knew certain things were going to happen because of the lore that it's based off of, I was still so invested. So many points where I was like putting my face into the book and just like fangirling and freaking out because I loved this story so much. For those of you that aren't familiar with it, we follow two different characters' points of view, Elle and Darian. Elle lives with her stepmother and stepsisters, and to sort of escape the havoc of having to live with them, she runs a blog based off of one of her favorite fandoms, Starfield, which is sort of like a Star Wars, Star Trek type thing for those of you that want to get a good mindset of what it is that she's interested in. When they are rebooting this fandom and making a movie adaptation off of it, the lead actor that gets casted, Elle is not really happy with, so she goes and blasts him online on her blog, and that actor turns out to be Darian, and he ends up seeing that post after it ends up going viral, and with the rising pressure of having to be in a role that a lot of people may have not expected him to get cast in, even though he is a fan of Starfield and has been a fan of since a very young age, and this is a dream role for him, and it's a role then that he's going to play well. With all that hate and having to attend a convention, then he starts to freak out, wants to back out of the convention. That convention ends up being the same one that Elle's father once owned before he passed away, and so he ends up coming into contact with her through text message to try to back out of this convention, and they start texting back and forth and start to form a friendship, even though in reality the two of them aren't necessarily very happy with each other. And I think that the paradox in this book is great. It's so great to see everything come together in the end. I just absolutely loved it, and I got to meet Ashley Poston at BookCon this year, and she was the absolute sweetest, and it was one of the best author experiences that I've had because I got to talk to her just about like everyday life and fandom and just really fun things, and it was just the coolest experience, hands down. I had the best time reading this book, and I think if you're looking for something that's fandom related, something that has sort of a princessy sort of old culture with Cinderella, this would be the perfect thing to pick up. Anyone who's invested in fandom will find a little bit of themselves in this, and I'm so glad that I picked it up this year because it was absolutely fantastic. Question number 2 is the best sequel you've read so far in 2017. This, without a doubt, hands down, has to go to none other than Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare. This, of course, was probably going to fill this spot regardless, but I think that Lord of Shadows really earned its spot in this question and in this category because the improvement that Cassie has made as an author is immense when you go and you read this compared to reading City of Bones, which is the first book that she ever published in the Shadow world. Cassie took a lot of risks with this story that that she hasn't taken in some of her past books, things that she did that I wouldn't have expected her to do, things that really impressed me and things that showed her growth as an author. And I just absolutely fall in love with the Shadow World the more and more that I get to read from it, and the more impressed that I become with Cassie and her writing. I just love this world so much, and there's so many interesting things that are going on. And I know those of you are wondering about a Lord of Shadows review, because I know I said I was going to be posting one and that it was going to be up by now. I haven't gotten around to it yet, so what I'm thinking about doing is doing a reaction video where I basically just fangirl, talk about some of the things that are on my mind with this book, rather than doing a full set out review, because this book is so big and I want to get my thoughts out there about this book. So it's just going to be sort of like a fun reaction-y video rather than a review, but I'm still excited to get to discuss this book with you more nonetheless. I absolutely love it. It had to, of course, be my favorite sequel of the year. I don't think anything's going to surpass it because of just how impressed I am with Cassie and her growth as an author and the risks that she took. There were so many things that happened in this book that were completely and entirely unexpected for me, that I was really impressed that Cassie added to the story, that I was really happy that she added to the story, and I feel like all of her risks paid off, and I'm really excited to see where she goes with Queen and Heir of Darkness, which is the final book in this trilogy, and that's not coming out until 2019. I could be in college by the time that book comes out, which is a very scary thing to think about. So I'm glad that I have this for now, and I'm really glad that I got to pick it up this year and that I just devoured it when I did, because I was just so in love with Cassie and her writing in this world, and this is a giveaway. Of course, this would be my favorite sequel of the year. Question number 3 is a new release you haven't read yet but want to. So this is a release that I recently bought at Barnes & Noble and I'm going to be picking up for Booktubeathon, and that is When Dimple Met Rishi by Sonia Menon. I have heard so many phenomenal things about this book. Not only are we dealing with two characters of an Indian descent who are sort of put into an arranged marriage situation by each of their parents, we're also dealing with computer programming, as that's what one of the characters, Dimple, wants to go into, and that's what her main focus is on. And so I feel like this book is going to be really interesting and really diverse in terms of the topics and themes that we're dealing with, and I've heard that it's a really fun summery contemporary, and I've also heard that once you start this book you pretty much just fly through it because you get so addicted. So I'm really excited to get to dive into this because I've heard nothing but phenomenal things. I saw the cover of this book originally and I wanted to pick it up just because it looked so pretty. I loved like the coffee on here and the writing on her hands, which I think is a part of Indian culture. I don't know that much about it, so I'm gonna sort of keep that to a minimum, but hopefully that'll maybe be talked about a little bit in the book and I'll find out more about that. But it just looked very summery, and then hearing what the book was about, I was even more interested to pick it up. So I'm excited to get to read this for Booktubeathon, and my thoughts on this will be coming very soon, and it will definitely be in my July wrap-up, so I'm excited to get to discuss more and pick this up very soon. Question number 4 is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year. So there are two books that come to mind. The first is They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. This comes out September 5th, and I am so excited to get to read it. I love Adam and all of his books, but this one particularly interests me because we follow two different characters who meet 24 hours before they are told that they are going to die through this Last Friends app, which was pretty much created for this futuristic society where people get notified 24 hours before they're going to die so that they can sort of get everything together and fulfill all of their bucket list goals and all the things that they need to get together before they go. And so these two characters meet through this app that allows people to be able to make friends and be able to sort of fulfill those goals before they die, and assuming then follows their romance. I love Adam Silvera books, and I've been super pumped about this one. I wanted to get an ARC at BookCon. It didn't happen, but I'm still excited to get to read it nonetheless, and I feel like I'll enjoy it a little bit more when I have to anticipate it rather than getting the ARC and getting that immediate satisfaction. So I'm excited for that to come out, and I'll definitely be reading it the minute that I get my hands on it. Then the next book that I'm anticipating is one that I've been anticipating pretty much forever, so of course this can't go without mentioning, and that is Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. As you can tell, I'm filming by my John Green wall. I have my Night Before Our Stars poster here, I have the Night in the Towns poster here, and then another Fault in Our Stars poster here. I love John Green and I love his books. They're the first contemporary books that I ever read that were YA, so of course I'm excited for this one. I don't know that much about it, but still, nonetheless, I know that it's going to be filled with all of John Green's wonderful metaphors and writing, and this is one that I'm super excited to pick up, especially because it deals with mental illness. It's something that John Green himself can really connect to and really relate to, so I think that's going to be really well written, and I'm super excited to get to read this when it comes out in October. Question number 5 is biggest disappointment. So for me, I've been reading a lot of really highly anticipated books this year, ones that are either new releases that everyone's been talking about or old releases that everyone has buzzed about that I've been wanting to catch up on. So I haven't really had too many horrible books that I've picked up this year, but one that just sort of comes to mind is Roseblood by A.G. Howard. This was one of the Owl Crate books of the month. I believe it may have been December, I'm not so sure, but this is a Phantom of the Opera storytelling, and I enjoyed it, and I think that the way that the author took the lore of the Phantom of the Opera and incorporated new aspects into it was really interesting, but I feel like the pacing was off at points. There were times where the pacing was either really fast and it felt like I turned a page and then there was like a whole paragraph or something that was missing, or times where it was going really slow and I wanted to pick up a little bit more, and times where I was just getting a little bit lost and it felt like it took a while to get through and it was just kind of like a slow read. I'm so glad that I got to pick it up nonetheless because I did like the Phantom of the Opera lore, being somebody who does enjoy Phantom of the Opera, and got to see it with my choir class on one of our field trips, so it's something that is close to my heart, and I was glad that I got to read this just because it was very unique, but it wasn't one of my favorite reads. It's not something that's going to be very memorable for me or very stand out, but I enjoyed it for what it was, and I'm glad that I got to pick it up this year. It just wasn't one of my favorite reads. Question number 6 is biggest surprise. So this is another one of my favorite reads of the year, and so I had to make sure that I could fit it in here. So I decided to pick Queens of Geek by Jen Wilde. Again, like I said, this was one of my favorite reads of the year, and the reason why I would say it was my biggest surprise rather than one of my favorite reads of the year is because I picked this book up on a little bit of a whim. I was going to Barnes & Noble and looking for a specific book, and they didn't have it in stock, so I found this, I read the back, it sounded interesting, and I went and I picked it up, and I absolutely loved it and was really surprised by it, because the thing about this book, for those of you that don't know anything about it, is that it is jam-packed with diversity. There is diverse aspects all across the board with this book. There's diversity of different ethnicities, different sexualities, different body types. There's also a little bit of exploration with feminism and mental health and mental illness, and then we also have YouTube culture within this book and fandom and geek culture in this book as the whole story takes place at a convention. There's so many wonderful things that this book delves into, and it's only a little over 200 pages, which is insane that in such a short book that much diverse topics can be put into the plot line. Because usually when you read diverse books, the author tends to focus on one specific aspect, whether it be mental health or whether it be a character's sexuality or their skin color or ethnicity. That tends to be the sort of bare bones minimum as to what's focused on in diverse books. But with this, it just takes everything diverse and just crams it into one book, and it's all done so well, and it doesn't feel like there's a certain topic that doesn't get enough spotlight. I feel like everything is really well highlighted and really well represented, and I really appreciated everything in the story and was really surprised by it because I wasn't expecting that many diverse aspects to be brought into the book. But there's a little bit of everything here, so if you're looking for a diverse book, this would be the one to pick up because it has a little bit of everything, and so I feel like you'll find something for you in this book. I absolutely loved it. It's one of my favorite reads of the year, and I was really surprised by how the author was able to take all those diverse aspects and put it into the story and be able to highlight everything and have it fold out so nicely. And I'm so glad I got to read this year because it was just the exact diverse book that I was looking for. So if you need a diverse read, this would definitely be one that I would recommend. Question number 7 is favorite new author, debut, or new to you. So I'm picking an author that was new to me because this year I've been trying to catch up on a whole bunch of series that I haven't read before, ones that are highly anticipated that a lot of people really love that I need to catch up on because I'm coming late to the party. So the first series that I picked up this year was the Red Rising trilogy by Pierce Brown. So Pierce Brown is the author that I picked for this question because I've absolutely fallen in love with him and his writing style. I picked up this trilogy knowing very bare minimum about it, knowing that it's a dystopian, takes place on Mars, and that we have a color caste system, knowing very little about the story and everything that's supposed to take place. And the more that I read, the more that I fell in love with it, and I stayed up until 12, 1, 2 in the morning reading each of these books and just diving into the world and into the characters and getting so immersed and not being able to put them down that I was staying up that late to finish them. I am so impressed by Pierce and his writing style to the point where Morningstar has become one of my favorite conclusions of all time. And I reviewed this trilogy on my channel. If you want to see that review, I will have it linked down below because I think it's worth a watch. And I absolutely had the best time with this trilogy. I'm so glad that I got to read from Pierce Brown this year. And I'm really excited for Iron Gold to come out next year. I know that it was pushed back. It was supposed to come out this year, but I'm glad that it was pushed back. I got my fix this year of Pierce Brown and his writing, so I'm super pumped to be able to get to read more from him next year, but then I got to pick up something from him this year, and then I finally picked up this trilogy because I absolutely love it. So question number 8 is newest fictional crush. This was a question that I feel like was the hardest for me because I've read 51 books this year. I feel like even even though I've read a lot of books, I haven't become attached to a specific character, and if I have, it's a book that I read towards the beginning of the year where I'm sort of like, I'm not as attached anymore. And so I'm sort of cheating a little bit when I decided to pick Jared Kleinman from Dear Evan Hansen. I'm holding up the libretto, so technically this is a book that you can read, and technically it counts, but technically it doesn't. But Jared Kleinman is my fictional crush, even though he's not literary. It counts. I absolutely love Jared. He is a jerk though. That's the thing, is that I just have this like contradiction. I don't know what it is about Jared, but I love him. He is very blunt and very just open and speaks his mind. Some of the things that come out of his mouth I would never dare to say, but I think that he absolutely steals every single scene that he is in, and I think a lot of that comes from the fact that Will Rowland plays Jared Kleinman in Dear Evan Hansen, and Will Rowland is absolutely precious. I love him so much. He's such a phenomenal performer. He has such an amazing voice and is so underrated. I've absolutely fallen in love with Jared in the way that he portrays Jared, because he's just so funny and so sweet, and I feel like the way that Will plays Jared, he just has so many hidden layers and depths, and it just makes me love him more and more and more and more. So Jared Kleinman, I absolutely love him, and I would say that if you want to know how it is that I love Jared, pick up the libretto of Dear Evan Hansen. It's worth your read because it's absolutely phenomenal. This musical and everything about it is fantastic. It's become one of my favorite things so far of the year. Just Jared Kleinman, he's wonderful. He's my child. I love him so much. He makes me so happy, and I'm gonna shut up now, but Jared Kleinman, the insanely cool Jared Kleinman, yes. So question number 9 is newest favorite character. So this was another hard question because I feel like, again, as I said before, I've had a hard time connecting to characters and finding characters that I really like. So I decided to pick a cast of characters that I really enjoyed. So I had to go with Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. I'm going to be meeting Becky in a few days, and I'm super excited to get to go to one of her signings at Anderson's. I loved this book so much. I love the theater aspect of the story. I also love how it's a coming out story, and we deal with our main character Simon, who's sort of having to deal with coming out as gay to his friends and to his family, and being able to understand that. It's just such a fun contemporary story, but it also deals with some really important things, and I loved all of the cast of characters in this book. They're all so phenomenal, and then with that, I love all of the cast that is going to be playing these characters in the movie, so it was just the perfect pick because we have a wonderful fictional cast on top of a wonderful real cast of actors who are going to be portraying all of the wonderful people within this book, and it just makes me so hyped for that movie to come out. From what I've heard, Becky really enjoyed it being on set, and she's really happy with how it all came together, watching sort of some of the scenes be filmed, so that makes me really happy because if an author's happy with their adaptation, I know that I can be happy with their adaptation, so I'm really excited to get to see this on screen. I'm really glad that I picked it up this year because the cast of characters are phenomenal and really make it worth a read. Question number 10 is a book that made you cry. So typically an Adam Silvera book would be here, and I was going to pick History Is All You Left Me, but then I found another book on my shelf that I felt filled the place a little bit more, and that is A List of Cages by Robin Rowe. This book is just, it's sad. I feel like you can't read this book and not cry because it just is incredibly sad, and I don't really want to talk about what it's about because it's one of the books where you have to go into it, and then once you read it, you sort of start to find out what's happening and what the main theme of the book is, and so it's one of those books that I feel like is better not talked about. I just would say that this is worth a read because of the important subject matter that it deals with, and the characters themselves are so wonderful and so adorable to read from. I picked this book up and I absolutely fell in love with it. It's such an important story. The characters are so wonderful, and you genuinely are crying by the end of it. Not only from tears of joy, but just like genuine sad tears because there's so many things that go on in this book that make it just an absolute tearjerker. But I'm so glad that I got to pick it up this year because it's just such a wonderful and such a poignant and heartbreaking read, but deals with really important messages. So on the opposite side of that, question number 11 is a book that made you happy. So I decided to pick a recent read, Tosh Hurts Tolstoy by Catherine Ormsby. This is our Diversity Readers Book Club pick of the month, and so at the end of July we are going to be discussing this book live on my channel, and all the information will be down below. I think that this book made me happy not only because I was reading from a character that I could really resonate with, but I was getting to read it with a whole bunch of other booktubers and being able to get to discuss it live, just having all the fun and excitement around this book definitely made it a very happy read for me. I love how YouTube plays into the story. I love the asexuality representation within this book. There were so many wonderful things about it that made it just such a happy read for me, and I'm so excited to get to discuss this book with all of you guys. And if you want to join along with our live show, all of the details will be in the description. We are having our live show July July 30th at 8 p.m. Eastern time. It is going to be on my channel. I'm really excited to get to discuss with you guys. Our Instagram is linked down below, all of that good information. Make sure you go and check out our live show and that you read Tash Hart's Tolstoy so that you can discuss along with us. Question number 12 is a favorite book to film adaptation that you saw this year. So I feel like this year was a little bit of an off year for book to film adaptations, and I feel like there isn't a lot of them that came out, but there's a whole bunch that are currently being put into production, which is exciting. So one that comes to mind as of right now is Everything by Nicola Yoon. This is one of the only book to film adaptations that I feel like I saw this year, other than A Monster Calls, which I really enjoyed, but I didn't get to discuss that much on my channel, whereas I do have a review for the Everything movie that I'll leave linked down below if you want to watch it. I really enjoyed it because I had a little bit more of an attachment to the book, and I liked getting to see it come on screen. I read the book before the film was even in production, and then when they had the casting announcement and hearing everything come together and getting to see the entire movie to come together, it was really exciting to get to see this on screen, especially because of the time that I was seeing it. It was right about at the beginning of my summer vacation, and I think it was like right before final exams were about to start, so it was just like a really crazy point that I was seeing it, but it was such an enjoyable film to get to go and see, to get to take a little bit of a load off, and get to be able to just see a movie that was really fun and really exciting, and it was a great way to sort of kick off my summer. So I had the best time seeing this movie adaptation. Of course, if you want to see more of my thoughts, the review will be down below. So question number 13 is your favorite video that you've done so far this year. So this has to be, without a doubt, my Dear Evan Hansen book tag, because that was something that I created, something that I spent months putting all of my work into, picking out a certain question that would fit each song, and then picking out the part of the song that I wanted to use for the lip sync, and getting to sort of put everything together. It was just such a fun experience, and it was something that I really enjoyed doing because it was something that was my own work, something that nobody had ever done before, and something that was mine, and it felt like I was adding unique content to BookTube, and I really liked getting to do that. Other than that, I would say I liked my New York vlogs as well because it was fun to be able to take you guys around the city and take you guys around as part of my vacation. It was fun to get to film, get to use a new camera, and get to just be around the city and get to sort of feel a little bit like a tourist, but getting to just sort of have fun with the vlogs and getting to put them all together. So although those are relatively recent videos, they are some of my favorites of the year, and I'm glad that I got to put them together and put them out there for you guys. Question number 14 is the most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received. So this, again, I hate mentioning the same books twice in a video because usually I like to try to mention as many different books as possible when I do tags, but I couldn't not default back to my Waterstones limited edition copy of Lord of Shadows. Although I already mentioned Lord of Shadows at the beginning of this video, this is by far the most beautiful book that I've received. There's nothing else that I could choose that would be this. It's absolutely gorgeous. I had to get this after getting the Lady Midnight Waterstones edition because they look so nice together. I love the Parabatai rune stamp that's on the cover, and then we have a quote on the back that is from Emma and Clary when they're having their conversation in the book. It's just so gorgeous, and I love the way that it shines on the camera with sort of the blue foil and the blue stamp of the Parabatai runes. It's just so pretty, and being somebody like myself who is such a huge fan of Cassie and her works, I had to pick this up, and it's going to be the most beautiful book that I've received this year, or that I've gotten this year. I don't think anything else can surpass it because it's Lord of Shadows. This is gorgeous, and I'm so excited to see the design that they have for Queen of Air and Darkness once that comes out, because the three of them are gonna look so gorgeous next to each other. But I love this. This is like my most prized possession because it's just so gorgeous. So question number 15 is the final question. It's what books do you want to read by the end of the year? So pretty much my goal, as always, is to read all of the books on my shelf, and then every time I get a book to try to pick it up and read it. But that could be an entire video of just books that I still need to read, books that have been sitting on my shelf that I need to get to. So I picked out one specific book that's come to mind. I've already talked about this a little bit on my channel, and that is A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. This book is huge. It's a little under 700 pages. I think it's 699 pages to be exact. With being in a little bit of the slump that I've been in with Sarah J. Maas and her books, just not being as intrigued to pick them up, this is one that I want to force myself to get to by the end of the year. Because this book came out this year, and because it's one that everybody's been talking about and been one of their favorites of the year, I just need to force myself to read it because I know so many people have read it and loved it and just had so many thoughts, and I want to be a part of that. So I need to read this very soon, and I'm hoping that I get to it by the end of the year. Unfortunately, it'll probably be happening later rather than sooner, just because there's so many other books that I want to get to before I even bother to pick this up. But I do want to get to it by the end of the year. That'll be my goal, and if it doesn't happen, you all can yell at me because I need to get to this very soon. So that is it for the mid-year book freakout tag. I had so much fun looking back at my year of reading so far and getting to discuss some of the books that I want to read this year. This was such a fantastic tag. Thank you so much, Molly, for tagging me, and thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to comment comment down below your favorite read so far this year and a read that you're looking forward to in the second half of the year. Let me know. That being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time with a new video. Goodbye!